There are supernatural practices that much of our society does not take seriously, but God does. Practices that much of our society might not even believe are real, but God does. And He reveals that by how He speaks about these things in His Word. And He reveals it by the consequences He put in His law to Israel for those who practice these things. Let's talk about some examples. These are on your outlines. When Israel was getting ready to enter the promised land, the Lord told them this: when you enter the land the Lord is giving you, do not imitate the detestable customs of those nations. No one among you is to sacrifice his son or daughter in the fire. That's a reference to the pagan practice that was happening in the land at that time of child sacrifice, literally killing your child as an offering to a pagan god. But I want you to note here what else the Lord puts in the same category as child sacrifice. He says also, no one among you is to practice divination. That simply refers to this umbrella category of trying to uncover some type of hidden knowledge by contacting the spiritual world. It could be knowledge about the future, knowledge about the past, or knowledge about the present. God says, likewise, no one among you is to tell fortunes or interpret omens. So these are practices like tarot cards or reading tea leaves. No one among you is to practice sorcery, cast spells, consult a medium or a spiritist, or inquire of the dead. That's just the practice of trying to somehow contact the spirits of the dead. Everyone who does these acts is detestable to the Lord. And the Lord your God is driving out the nations before you because of these detestable acts. These practices are detestable to the Lord because they are a direct insult to and rejection of Him. Let me explain. The Lord has made Himself available to all who desire a relationship with Him. The God of heaven and earth offers His Spirit to every person. He says, I'll come and dwell in you so that our relationship, our communion can be constant. I'll lead and guide you through my Spirit. If you need wisdom, just ask and I'll give it to you. And through my word, I'll give you insight into the true nature of reality. That's the offer of God. And even back under the old covenant, God still offered people a way to commune with the spiritual and the supernatural, with Himself, the one true God. But there's a catch to this offer that God makes. God's offer includes trusting Him as Lord, trusting Him to decide what is good for you, and trusting Him when He withholds certain things from you because He says these things are not good for you. Now that shouldn't be an issue. Why? Because God is perfectly loving, kind, and good. If He says this is not for you, it's not because it's awesome and He doesn't want you to have it. It's because He knows it's going to bring something destructive into your life and your relationships. But those who engage in these detestable practices are saying, I want to access the spiritual world without having to submit to God as Lord. They're saying, I don't want any restrictions. I don't want God to decide what's good for me. I want to be my own God. And like Lucifer, they are motivated by the desire to be like God themselves and access secret knowledge on their own terms. And God says that's detestable. It's also detestable because there are only two spiritual forces in existence: God and the forces of darkness. You've got to understand this concept. And if you are engaging in any kind of spiritual or supernatural practice that is not biblical, that is not of the Lord, if you're not engaging with Him, then you're engaging with spiritual forces of darkness. It's that simple. It doesn't matter if you or the culture don't think it's a big deal. It doesn't matter what you think. Let me say it again, and you can write it down. If you are engaging in any kind of spiritual or supernatural practice that is not biblical, then you are engaging with spiritual forces of darkness. It's not good spirits and bad spirits. It's not white magic or black magic. It's not positive energy or negative energy. If it's not of the Lord, it's of the darkness. And practices that you might think are innocuous, harmless, are in reality bringing you into contact with demons or evil spirits.